Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Forbes senior contributor, Dani Di Placido. Dani, thanks for joining me once again.
My pleasure, Brittany.
As you know, we are anxiously awaiting King Charles III's coronation on May 6th, and reports are coming out now that some celebrities are turning down the opportunity to perform during the big day. But first, before we get into that, I do want you to set the scene for us. Can you explain just how big of a deal the coronation is?
Well, for Britain, it's a big deal. It's a historic event. The last coronation was, for Queen Elizabeth 70 years ago. It's an event that's like very heavy with symbolism. It's taking place in Westminster Abbey. Charles is going to sit on a 700-year-old coronation throne, which was commissioned by King Edward I. The palace is going to transport the Stone of Scone from Edinburgh Castle, which is also known as the Stone of Destiny, which has been used to crown Scottish kings for like centuries. So it's all very Game of Thrones, super historical. But at the same time, I don't really know if all the symbolism has the same weight that it did back when Queen Elizabeth was crowned. And now the conversation and the framing is quite different because, this is the king is essentially throwing himself a very expensive party during a pretty terrible cost of living crisis in the UK. So a lot of people are viewing the coronation with skepticism.
And why do you think the symbolism doesn't carry the same weight from 70 years ago exactly?
Well, people view the crown differently. Like nowadays, people will a lot of it's thanks to the conversations that Harry and Meghan have started. But nowadays, people will like think of um, the ethics of the Commonwealth, the colonialism, when they see the crown. When they look at the crown jewels, they'll maybe no longer in awe. Maybe nowadays they'll be like, which country did you snatch those gems from? It's just a completely different tone. And this is Britain is the last monarchy in Europe to kind of be doing this kind of thing. It's not, it's a bit of a relic, the institution.
As we know, there is expected to be a coronation concert. Can you tell us there's some performers that are expected not to show up? Why not, and who are they?
Yeah, so there's been quite a lot of A-list performers that have declined the opportunity to perform at the coronation concert. So the Daily Mail reported that Adele and Ed Sheeran were both invited and both declined. So apparently Adele didn't give a reason, and Ed Sheeran says he has a scheduling conflict. Although the Daily Mail kind of implied that if he really wanted to, he could make it on a private jet, but I'm not sure if that's a rumor. Just a couple of days ago, Kylie Minogue just turned down the opportunity to perform as well. And The Sun reported that Elton John, Harry Styles, and Robbie Williams also declined, apparently due to scheduling conflicts. And the Spice Girls were rumored to appear, but they also declined and said they had a lack of rehearsal time.
These are some big names that you're throwing out, some of the biggest performers of our generation. How surprising is it that they're not performing on this big day?
For some of them, it's kind of understandable because a lot of them are on tour, and these tours must have been scheduled well in advance. But it is weird that so many of them have declined. I can't imagine that this amount of A-listers would cancel on the Queen. I don't really think Charles's coronation is given as much importance. Like if we compare it to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, which was her celebrating 70 years on the throne, she managed to have a lineup of Rod Stewart, Diana Ross, Queen, the band, Elton John, and Ed Sheeran showed up as well.
Why do you think there is such this difference here that people aren't going to perform for King Charles, but they would for the Queen?
Well, King Charles, he is not beloved the way that his mother was. I don't think he ever really was, to be honest. And when I was talking previously about the shifting perception of the monarchy, that's very relevant, but it's also Charles himself. The Queen was kind of immune to a lot of these accusations. The Queen was rightly or wrongly, the Queen was kind of viewed as someone who had sacrificed and worked very hard for the duty of the people. And King Charles just, in my lifetime, he's always kind of been viewed as a bit of a punchline. We know a lot of drama about his personal life during the Diana years. A lot of that stuff is being highlighted again with Netflix's The Crown, kind of reminding the younger generation of what Charles did and what he's like. So, and I think there's also like a generational divide with like older people in Britain will probably respect Charles just for being the king, while the younger just would view him with a lot of skepticism. But the Queen was very smart in her lifetime to just kind of never give her opinion, because she just kind of vanished into the role and became a symbol. She was pretty much untouchable. Like even people who are very critical of the monarchy, it is hard to criticize someone who never gives their opinion.
Absolutely. And you did mention that family drama component, and we can't forget to mention the Harry and Meghan aspect of all of this. Do you think some of these A-list performers are not choosing not to perform because it would look like they were choosing a side in the Harry and Meghan versus the royals drama?
Well, quite possibly. That royal drama definitely lost Charles and everyone else a lot of goodwill. Rolling Stone, actually, they were reporting on this too. They quoted a PR specialist who just speculated that A-listers, British and otherwise, just don't see the monarchy as something they want to be associated with anymore. It's lost a lot of the prestige that it had with Elizabeth.
Is there any indication of how Charles or the palace has reacted to all of these big names saying no and declining the invitation to perform at his coronation?
So apparently Elton John was at the top of Charles' list. A source told the Daily Mail that Charles was very keen to have Adele and Ed Sheeran perform, and that their cancellation was a major disappointment. The British tabloids have often reported that Charles is obsessed with his personal image, so I can't imagine that he's too happy about all these A-lister cancellations.
Yeah, I could imagine that no one would like someone not coming for their big day, but are there any celebrities that RSVP'd? Yes, they're going to be there and they're going to be performing.
Yeah, some. They're kind of British A-listers, maybe not on the same level as Elton John and Adele. The members of the band Take That are going to be there. Well, aside from the big headliner Robbie Williams, he has declined, but Gary Barlow will be there, and he's a pretty big name in Britain. You've got Andrew Lloyd Webber, he's a legend, and the Motown legend Lionel Richie, and possibly the X Factor star Ollie Murs might be expected to join the lineup, but he hasn't confirmed yet. So they got a handful, but compared to who was asked and who showed up, there's a bit of a contrast there. It is giving off the impression that no one wants to come to the King's party.
It's definitely giving the impression maybe this is like the junior varsity tier 2 performers, but I'm still excited to tune in nonetheless. Dani Di Placido, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Brittany.